Hello again. I am speaking to you from Argentina. You probably have seen, or you may have seen some of my videos on the global financial collapse, on the world government and what to do about it, on President Obama's government, and other subjects. And today I'd like to address, today's the 6th of July 2009, I'd like to address a couple of other points which I think are very important and very vital for all of humanity, and definitely for my country, Argentina, and for whoever is listening out there. It refers to a couple of events which are not being properly covered by the mainstream media, but which are very important. The mainstream media seems to have the objective of giving us other information of much lesser importance. First of all, we've said it before, we are seeing the disintegration, the irreversible disintegration of the global financial, banking and monetary system, which is based on being parasitic, immoral and irresponsible, and which is dragging the world economies towards an abysm. Secondly, this is getting worse day by day, and the consequences on a social and political level will be terrible for all countries in the world. And thirdly, and I hate to be the one to say it, this is going to get worse in the next 6 to 12 months. And there are various reasons why this is going to be so, and we have to understand these processes so that we can minimize, mitigate the threats, the impact, and why not take advantage of certain opportunities which different countries might be able to take. Let me give you some indicator of why I'm saying this. If you take world trade at February 2009 and compare it to world trade in February 2008, year to year, we find that world trade has fallen 41% in China, 38% in Japan, 33% in France and Canada, 32% in Germany and the United Kingdom, 26% Mexico, 25% Brazil, 24% in my country Argentina, 22% in the United States. Clearly something is happening, and it's happening very quickly. According to the European consultancy Global Europe Anticipation, in their bulletin number 36 of 17th June, they say that in the next months we are going to see a grave worsening of this entire process. They call it sort of a tsunami effect, and they say that there will be 3 giant rogue waves, which in some countries will be consecutive, and in other countries are going to be simultaneous. The first is the wave of unemployment, mass unemployment. The second wave is the wave of bankruptcies, not just corporations, companies, banks, but also governments, counties, states in the United States. And the third wave will be the demise of the United States dollar as a world currency. This explains why some countries which have good leaderships, like China and Russia, are preparing for a post-dollar world. And don't be confused. This is not the consequence of errors that have been committed by your Greenspans and your Greenbergs and your Goldman Sachs and all these people. This is exactly part of a plan. They've been looking for it because they need to have this crisis as a way of re-engineering and reinventing the global financial system, but now on a global basis, so that they do not depend on the national currency of any specific country. Companies are also preparing, large companies, for what's to come, for the impact of what's to come. That's why we see so many people being fired, reduction in operational costs, and even controlled bankruptcies, as we see in those banks and companies that are said to be too big to fail. And so, since they are too big to fail, they are bailed out with public money in the United States and in Europe, and we've seen how the public has paid for the grave mistakes of General Motors, Citicorp, Bank of America, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Chrysler, and many others to come. But the multimedia seem to make believe that this is really not so bad, that somebody has told them way up in the pyramid that they have to instill trust and optimism. And that's the sort of information we get time and again from CNN, from Fox News, from the BBC, the New York Times, the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the local media in my country. They say time and again, the crisis is going to be over soon. They say time and again, that stock markets are going to bounce back. They say it's a question of just waiting and consumer levels will start rising again. It's all going to be okay. In the end, all will be well, as Winston Churchill once said. But that is part of psychological actions, psychological operations. The experts call them green sprouts. They try to make us believe that with false optimism, but we know that in the end these are all fairy tales. Because what we have, and we've said it before and we must say it again, is a gigantic virtual money hole in the markets affecting derivatives, banking, hedge funds, speculators of all sorts, and that gigantic whole is 10 to 15 times the gross product of the entire planet. That's about 40 times the gross domestic product of the United States. It cannot be fixed. You see, the massive virtual money, conservative estimates give it at around $600 trillion. That's 10 times the global GDP of the entire planet. Let's be generous. Let's say that out of those 600 trillion, only 60 trillion, 10%, will have to be bailed out. That's still $60 trillion. So what can 77 billion from the Bush-Paulson administration, or 800 billion from Obama, or 1.1 billion from the G20 in London do? They sound like large amounts, but they are simply too small. So it's going to fall. If anything, we could say that the global financial system today, to make a metaphor, is like the World Trade Center on that terrible morning of 11 September 2001. The two towers are smoking, the fires are there, we see them, everybody said, well, they'll probably put them out. And what nobody expected suddenly happened. The towers collapsed. That's what's happening to the financial system. So it's best to know it so that at least we get out of the way. Let's see these three waves that this consultancy informs. The first wave will probably take place first in the United States and the United Kingdom around September. That's just two and a half months away, because that's when the 6-month period of unemployment insurance will end for those people who are left without a job at the end of 2008. And this summer we'll see millions of youngsters from high school, from university, go out into the labor market, but there's just no work for them. Already 6 million jobs have been lost in the United States. Other countries like China, Southeast Asia, Germany, Scandinavia, Japan might be able to hold out until December of this year or even 2010, because they have much better, much more solid social networks that will protect people with social security, but they will also suffer the impact. Latin America too, we will also have that with the sequel of poverty, social disturbances, insecurity, and everything we can imagine. Then we will have the second wave of this whole thing will be bankruptcy, not just of companies, but we will also see bankruptcies of states, of countries. We've seen it already in the state of California, where Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger has had to implement state money from his own state. We had that in Argentina in 2001, Patacones they were called. We had, out of our 24 provinces, 18 provinces had to issue their own money because the whole monetary system went bankrupt. Now it's happening to California, it's going to be happening very soon to Nevada, South Carolina, Florida. Who will be next? And then we have the de-dollarization of the global economy. And here I would like to refer to two very specific meetings that took place, which did not receive much coverage from the mainstream media. The first meeting took place 15th and 16th of June in Ekaterinburg, which is the third largest city in Russia, and brought together Hu Jintao, the president of China, Dmitry Medvedev, the president of Russia, and the presidents of Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan. They are all part of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the SCO, which also includes as observers Iran, India, Pakistan, and Mongolia. And as a trade member or a trade observer, Brazil from our continent. Now, the two heavyweights there are obviously China and Russia. And what the United States and the United Kingdom tried to stop the meeting and they couldn't. Then they tried to be part of the meeting and they weren't allowed to be part of the meeting. And at the end they asked to be observers to the meeting and they were not even allowed to be observers. Why? Because the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Russia and China, fully realized that we need to dismantle the financial and military empire of the United States of America. 60% of the global defense or war spending is by the United States of America. The London meeting of the G20 in April just tried to make everything keep going as it was up to now. Russia and China proposed other alternatives. They were not listened to. So now Russia and China are going on their own. Clearly, we placed a little bell on the cat's tail, and we now know where the cat is going. We can hear him. There is an imminent collapse of the United States dollars. As an example, when Timothy Geithner, the Secretary of the Treasury of the United States, went to China recently at the beginning of June, in the University of Peking, he spoke with students there, and when he said that the Chinese government had done well to purchase United States dollars and United States Treasury bonds, he was met with generalized laughter. The Chinese clearly are not easy to fool. The second meeting that took place, 14